Hello and welcome to my very first podcast / YouTube upload. My name is Samantha Yardley. I'm a writer specialising in the fitness industry. I get told all the time that I should have a podcast, and I thought, really, are people going to want to see that? But it dawned on me that I'm very privileged in my job, that I get to interview some absolutely fascinating and hugely inspiring people, and it seemed a real shame to not share the content that I have been amassing. So the first guy that I've decided to share is a chap called Vick Tipnes. Now, he was a huge source of inspiration for me personally, extremely charming, comes from Leicester, actually, which is really close to me in the UK. And he just really personifies like the rags to riches story. Literally pulled over on the side of the road with like $100 in his wallet, had to cry because everything was just going wrong, like literally reached rock bottom. And then just had like an epiphany and wanted to turn his life around. And I loved speaking to him. I just wanted to soak up some of his like entrepreneurial spirit. This was maybe one of my favorite interviews ever, actually, because this dude is just rolling around in Phantoms and Lambos now, hugely successful and also very humble and charming. So hopefully you guys will get something from it, get some value from it. I would really appreciate a subscription. Hit the subscribe, thank you. And yeah, that's all. I feel nervous, it's my first one. But yeah, hopefully you like it. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Nice to meet you virtually.
I know, thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm a blue collar guy. I came from, no money. My parents were middle class, and I started a company in my kitchen, Blackstone Medical Services, in 2012. Literally with this idea that I was going to provide a product and service for testing people that suffered from sleep apnea. Mm. So I don't know how familiar you are, or maybe your audience is, about sleep apnea, but it's a disease that affects you when you can't breathe at night. So typically, if you have to get tested, you have to go to a hospital or you have to go to a sleep lab to get tested. And I have a product that allows you to get tested in your home. And the product is like the size of, a cell phone. And we ship it to your house, you do the test in your house, you send it back to us, and then we have physicians that diagnose you. Perfect. And I literally started just, in my kitchen, knocking on doors to doctors, getting doctors to refer business. And, through a lot of hard work and consistency and being persistent, we grew to be the largest in the country. We became the largest in the country last year in July. Wow. And we service over 165,000 patients a year. We're in 50 states. We have our corporate office here in Tampa. We have just a little bit over 200 employees. And, we've just grown in leaps and bounds. We've become an Inc. 5000 company 4 years in a row. And so when I talk, now that I have an opportunity to talk, people want to know, okay, well, what did you do? Because you were completely broke. And it was true. I had $78 in my bank account like 6 years ago.
Wow. Wow, that was 6 years.
Yeah, it was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I was making $700 a week. And I had $78 left to my name. And I had a business that was losing $20,000 a month. And I think at the time I had about 12 employees, and I couldn't pay myself. So I had to figure out ways. I mean, I sold everything I had in my house. I had no furniture, and, my bed was on the floor. I had no bed frame. I had no nightstands. So it was a really bad situation. I mean, it wasn't like, and I had just gotten divorced, and it was just like, you name it, it was happening to me. And so, the big shift that happened for me was when I went from thinking in scarcity to thinking big. One of the things I think a lot of people miss out on is they think, okay, what's average and what's normal and what are people doing that is kind of like the status quo. And if you're shooting for that as a goal, you don't usually end up there. You usually end up a little lower. Okay. And being normal and being average isn't really going to give you security.
I love that.
I mean, it's just not. You have to, in today's environment, you have to think in abundance. You know, you have to think big. Okay, so if you're seeing 1,000 clients a month, how do you see 10,000 clients a month? Right? Because if you're just humming along and everything is normal and everything is average, and then you have a catastrophe that hits you, you have a lawsuit or you have this or you have that, you're done.
True.
Right? Or you go into this, like you want to crawl into a cave because you're scared about what's going to happen. As opposed to if you're so big, you know, and your company is so huge and your abundance is so large and you're making way more money than you need. Now you can breathe a little bit. Mm-hmm. Right? And so this idea that you should just think kind of, well, you know, if I'm a real estate agent or I'm a trainer and I'm like, okay, well, I'm big in my city. Okay, well, what about being big in the state, you know, or being big in the eastern part of your country or the whole country or whatever the case may be? So I talk a lot about that, and it really resonates with a lot of people because most people, including myself, I didn't think big. You know, it wasn't until I started thinking big that I started to see more rewards in my personal life. Like when I said, okay, you know what, I can have the business I want and it can be the biggest in the country, you know, or I can have the health that I want, you know, and was willing to sacrifice and willing to be disciplined and all of that, or willing to have the relationship that I want and not settling for something that was average. Mm-hmm. You know, so that has always been a winning mindset, not just for me, but for a lot of successful people. And I think that a lot of people don't get into that kind of mind frame. And then as a result, they don't win as much as they should.
So how would you recommend that people go from like an average mindset to being exceptional?
I think you have to take where you are now and just decide, are you happy? Mm-hmm. You know, are you really happy with where you are now? Most people will say, no, I wish this would be better. I wish that would be better. Well, if that's the case, then you have to start thinking bigger. Like you're just not going to level up in life. Your income isn't going to level up. You know, your abundance and security isn't going to level up unless you're willing to think bigger, right? So if you're seeing 10 clients a month and that's your customer base, maybe you need to be at 100, maybe you need to be at 500, you know, but you have to really start pushing that envelope. Otherwise, you're going to be in this normal average band. And that normal average band, believe it or not, is the most risky, scary situation. I'll give you an example. You know, the median household income in the United States is $54,000. Okay. There's an income scale that says that if you make 100,000, 200,000, and up to 500 and $1 million plus, if you make $400,000 in the U.S., you are at the highest risk.
Mm-hmm. Because you're comfortable.
Because you're comfortable. Yes. Yeah. Very smart. You're comfortable. You're comfortable, but you're not rich enough to withstand a major blow, because we all know that as you level up in your income, you also level up in your lifestyle. So the guy goes from 100 grand to 400 grand, and now he's got a bigger house, and then they have 3 cars, and then they go travel and blah, 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 blah. And that is the riskiest position that you can be in. And people don't think that. They're like, oh my God, you know, I'm making $500,000 a year, and that's like, I'm set. No, statistically speaking, you're in the highest risk, because even at $400,000 or $500,000 a year in the U.S., people still have between 25 to 30% consumer debt. They still have debt, right? Their houses are not paid off. They have more liabilities than assets. So, you know, you really have to like go high. You really have to go high. So I see that a lot when I talk about people that are just thinking like that. And usually they can get out of it and they start thinking, okay, you know what? I do have to think bigger. I got to get out of my comfort zone because I'm comfortable, and comfortable is a disease.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. So you would say people who are at the bottom end of the scale, they've got like the motivation to change. Would you agree?
If people are what?
And like at the lower end of the income scale, they've got the motivation to change and to put in the work.
They've got more. I think people that get a little bit higher, they get super comfortable. And comfortableness is definitely a disease. You know, I wake up every day like the rents due. Mm. You know, because you don't want to get into that comfortableness. It's really bad.
Totally. Okay, so what would you recommend then? People need to think bigger, but how do they implement that? Do they put in the effort? Is it like discipline and effort? How do you like enforce it?
Well, I think you first have to name what you want, right? And then it's discipline. Is the person willing to do all the things that they need to do to get to where they want? Mm-hmm. Some people are, most people are not. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how many people are just not willing to put in the effort. Yeah, they're not willing to wake up at 6 a.m. to go work out. They're not willing to stay late. They're not willing to go meet with somebody on a Saturday or a Sunday because it cuts into their personal time or whatever BS. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I see a lot of people that just fail because they're lazy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And what about in terms of balance? Like, what is your personal life like? Can you fit everything in?
I don't believe in balance. I think balance is a lie. Absolutely. No, balance is a myth. Balance was designed to trip people up. There is no balance.
Yeah.
You have to fit it all in. And there are days and weeks and months where some things get more attention than other things. You know, like right now we're in this huge expansion mode. We're opening an office in Medellin, Colombia. We're expanding into South America, and you know, we're developing applications and this and that. And so that takes a lot of time. So, you know, my attention is predominantly there. Now that's going to be over at some point, and then I'll be starting something new. So it kind of ebbs and flows. But, you know, to think that you have this balance and it's like, okay, I've spent enough time today with this person, and that's BS. It's BS. Like, you know, my wife knows that I love what I do. And she never is like, oh, you're working too much and you're doing blah, blah, blah. But I also know, hey, you know what? We need some time. So maybe let's go out to dinner and do something or whatever. Or I'm going to be busy for 4 weeks. And then maybe after that, we take a weekend away or something. Okay. But, you know, in terms of a balance, like, you know, every day, like, oh, I have to do this. I have to get this. Mm-hmm. That's BS. You can't, if you want balance, you're not going to be successful.
Interesting. Would you say then that you've picked really wisely with your partner then?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Best decision I ever made. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you can really, and, you know, and I have in the past really picked the wrong person, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. I mean, I got to tell you, you know, we've been together for, the whole time we've been together for 2 years, we haven't had one argument.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
Not one.
Wow. How come?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest disagreement we've had has been that I love to smoke cigars, and he doesn't necessarily always like the cigar smoke. So sometimes we were at somebody's house, and the patio door was not big enough or something, and she was like, and I got a little pissy about the cigar smoke or whatever. But that's it. The reason that we don't is because the thing that we did in the very beginning was we sat down and we said, okay, what do you need and want? And I literally asked her, what do you need and want for your life, and what do you need and want from me? Oh. And then I did the same with her. I told her, I was honest with her, like, this is what I need and this is what I want. You know, and 99% of people don't have that conversation in the beginning. Yeah. Like, you're caught up in this love, lust, BS, and oh my God, you're so hot and you're so this and you're so da 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 da. and nobody has the logical conversation of saying, okay, what do you need and want? You know, if you want, or, you know, if she wants somebody that works a 9 to 5 and goes to Home Depot on the weekends and gets flowers and makes things and whatever, I'm not your guy, and it's okay. Go find that guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you get into agreement on all of the main things, you know, whether it's political, whether it's health, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, how do you behave in a relationship, what is acceptable and what is not. Like, there's no raising voice. I've never raised my voice at her. She's never raised her voice at me. We've never been disrespectful to each other. She understands her role. I understand my role. And I think that there's this fallacy that, you know, relationships are hard work. And I think that's BS. And I don't think they're hard work at all. I think they're hard work when you don't talk about the actual issues, you know, and you can sit, I could sit with most couples and be like, okay, so what do you think about that? And it's like, oh, well, no, I never brought that up, and I never talked about this, and I never talked about that. And I'm just like, well, okay, cool. So those things are going to continue to come up. So my advice to people, and I never thought I'd ever give relationship advice, but, you know, I think that, hey, you know, people don't believe me when I'm like, we don't argue. We've never had an argument.
Wow.
It's because we're on the same page and we have a high standard. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot, is being reasonable, right? Like, if you want a better life, you can't tolerate certain things.
Yeah.
Right. And I am not reasonable. Like, it's not real to me. Like, if I told you tomorrow you can't eat or drink, what are you going to think?
Well, I would just eat and drink anyway.
Right. But you would just, but what goes through your mind? You're just like, hell no. Right.
Yeah. Just dismiss it. Right.
Right. You just dismiss it. Okay. Well, the same thing is in human behavior. Like, what are you willing to accept?
Sure.
Are you willing to accept a person that when there's a disagreement or an upset, they lose it? Okay. Then that's what you're going to get.
You're right. It's very wise.
That's what you're going to get. I have zero tolerance for that. Zero. I mean, when I say zero, zero.
Wow.
There is none of that. I don't tolerate that with my friends. I don't tolerate that with my spouse. Zero. That is a deal. Like, when I say a deal breaker, it's a deal breaker. Like people know, and my spouse knows, that that's a deal breaker for me. I don't want to operate like that in my life, but in the opposite, I provide that for somebody else. I don't do that. So it's not like I can lose it, but you can't. No. It's like, hey, I don't lose it ever. I don't lose it.
Wow.
So if I'm going to give you that as a gift,
sure, right,
I expect that back. And then there's zero tolerance for it. And so it's you know, the analogy of saying, well, if I told you tomorrow don't eat or drink, you're going to dismiss it because it's not real to you, right? Same thing. And that level of reasonableness tolerates in your business. It tolerates in your finances. You know, what are you willing to tolerate? Are you willing to tolerate not having money? Are you willing to be reasonable about it? Are you willing to be reasonable that you can't go buy what you want, or you can't help your family member, or you can't help your friend? Okay, well, then that's your decision. Like, I was making $700 a week 6 years ago. I remember 2015, I pulled over the highway because I only had $100 left at the end of and I was crying on the highway, pulled over to the side of the highway, crying because I had $100 left in my bank account.
Wow. And you just decided you weren't going to tolerate it anymore?
Well, yeah, and you know, you can decide, but it doesn't mean, like, you know, if I decide that I want to be rich and I want to have an abundance of money, we all know it's not going to happen today. Right? There's some things that are either going to happen today or some things that you're going to have to work towards. So I had already decided that in 2012 when I started Blackstone. I wanted to live in abundance, but it took time. You know, that took time. You know, having the reasonableness about a friend or a spouse and saying, hey, I'm not willing to tolerate this. So that can start now. You don't have to wait 3 years for that.
Sure.
Or if you want to live a better life, you know, for your health, you can start that today. You know, you don't have to wait 5 years for that. There are some things you have to wait for. You know, I wanted a Rolls Royce. I wasn't going to get it in 2012, right? I got it now. So that, you know, those things take time. So I think that, but a big aspect of it is just not being reasonable. I highly encourage people to not be reasonable.
Interesting. That's such a good MO. I like that. That's going to be a great quote.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Good. So you've decided not to be reasonable. Then what? You just put in a lot of work, right? And be patient. Is that it?
You know, it's a constant, you know, the interesting, and that's a good question. It's not like you just decide and then it just happens, right? You decide, but it's every day.
Mm. Yeah.
It's seeing life happening in front of you every day and saying, you know what, I don't like that. I'm not going to be okay with that. Yeah. We made, you know, $10,000 this week. No, I'm not going to be okay with that. I want to make 15. Or somebody behaves a certain way and you allow it. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's no finish line.
Yeah.
Right? It's an everyday constant vigilance in your life. Like you have a friend, all of a sudden your friend introduces you to their friend, and their friend is like trouble. And you know their drama, and you can perceive their drama. Right? So, okay, what do? Do you get reasonable and just say, okay, well, it's just her. You know, it's Cindy. That's how Cindy is. That's being reasonable. I'm like, hell no. I'm like, hell, I will cut you off so fast. Like, I just don't tolerate it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't. And I've been in those positions where I'm just like, no, I'm not going to go to this party, and I'm not going to go there. And I don't want to invite this person over to my party or to my house because they're drama, and I don't want to, you know, partake in it. And, you know, I've worked so hard in my life, so I'm in a position where I don't have to. And I think that's another powerful position to get to when you're not reasonable, right? You know, I don't have to like somebody because I need them for my survival. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't have to do business with somebody because it's a great opportunity, but they're a dick. Mm-hmm. I don't have to. I can pass. No, thanks. You know, so it's a constant thing, and it's something that you wake up with every day and say, okay, I'm not going to be reasonable about this.
Is that because you value your own time?
It's because I'm a best friend to myself. It's not time. Why do I want to put myself through that?
Yeah. Okay. So you're just kind to yourself, really.
I mean, you got to be a best friend to yourself first.
You're right. I completely agree.
Nobody talks about that, but you know, oh, I have a best friend. Well, are you a best friend to yourself? You know, because you know how like you have a best friend that's going through something and you feel bad for them. You're like, hey, I just don't want people to treat you that way. Well, you know, shouldn't you think that way about yourself?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I'm a best friend to myself first. I get up every day and I'm a best friend to myself first. I put myself first. Because if I'm not good, I'm not happy, and I'm compromising my own mental health and health and spiritual health and everything else, then how am I going to make my spouse happy? How am I going to make not happy, but I'm going to be like shitty to be around.
Yeah. I completely understand. Like, fill your own cup first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. Thank you. Have you got like any routines or habits that you implement every day?
Yes, I'm the routine king. So I eat the same thing every day. I have a very strict diet, but I have a cheat meal every Wednesday night and Saturday night, sometimes on Sunday, but usually not. I have coffee every morning. Every time I have lunch after work, I have coffee, and I have 2 Ferrero Rochers.
Nice.
Every day. Mm-hmm. And I work out 5 days a week, and I drink the same thing. Like I love Coke Zero. I always drink Coke Zero. I'm just a habit guy. Like I just stick with one thing. I usually eat the same thing for lunch every day because I like it and it's good and it's quick. And I usually wear the same stuff to work. So I wear jeans every day. I wear either a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt. And I love Jordans and Louis Vuitton. So I wear a lot of Jordans and I wear a lot of Louis Vuitton. And that's it. And I stick with that. If I wear a suit, I wear a black suit. I wear a white shirt, black tie. That's it.
Cool. And does that save you time because you're not thinking about all the different options?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in the morning, it's like, okay, black t-shirt or white t-shirt. I mean, it drives my wife crazy because she's like, well, I like to see you in colors. And then I'm just like, no. I think I have a few light blue shirts, but no, I stick with black, white, done.
Okay. And what about like...
It does save a lot of time.
Say again?
It does save a lot of time.
And what about like day to day in terms of your routine day to day? Is there anything that helps you to be super efficient?
I meet with the same people at work every day. We have a lot of meetings about what's happening. I don't necessarily have time set aside for like emails and things like that, but usually I just kind of, I have an agenda for the week always. So I always know coming into Monday, okay, I have to accomplish this week. And I have monthly goals or quarterly goals or, year-end goals. And I'm always making sure every week that we're trending to that. So I also meet every week with my financial officer for the business. And I go over every dollar that we're spending that week.
Wow.
So I know every dollar that we're spending in the company week to week, day to day. I know exactly like how much revenue we bring in every day. And every Thursday morning, I meet with my finance person and we go over everything we're paying for the week, like to the dollar. We review everything and we do it weekly. And it's every week. So there's no surprises. There's no like, oh my God, this happened, or we thought we were going to do this and we spent this. Like zero. I literally have I have money budgeted out over the next 2 to 3 months.
Is that how you function well then, having that kind of autonomy?
Yeah, because when you have a lot going on, you need to plan and think ahead. So looking at my cash position every week and knowing that this is happening this week and this is what's happening next week and then next month, and knowing what's going on, it allows you to think a little bit better about other decisions that you have to make.
Interesting. What about your book? Can you give us a little synopsis?
The synopsis is I'm just very honest, just in the way that I approach things. And so I just wanted to put a book out that hopefully inspired somebody that was in a situation where they were struggling in life, no matter their age, and just knowing that they can turn it around, and then knowing what can you do to turn it around. This is a difference in saying to somebody, you can turn your life around. Okay, but how? So I literally just started writing it out and say, okay, well, this is what happened to me, and this is what I did. This is another situation that happened to me, and this is what I did. This is when I was sued by my family, and this is what I did. That's like in the first chapter. It's called When the Vultures. And it's in Spanish too, by the way.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, crikey.
It's in Spanish anyway. But the chapter, how it all started, the vultures come out, light at the end of the tunnel, the moment of truth, on the brink of bankruptcy, what it takes to grow a business. Sometimes you have to reshuffle the deck. When you realize your spouse, friends, and family aren't on your team after all.
Wow. It's very cutting edge, isn't it? Sounds good.
It's true. And a lot of people don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it or whatever. And it's like, so I it became an Amazon bestseller, and it beat out Dave Ramsey and Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk. In all those categories. So I was really, really honored and happy about that. So it's been good.
Yeah.